All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are in episode 38 of the Samurai Brothers. We are back again. And Matthew, it's been hasn't been too long actually, because we were in last week, and we've got a lot of things coming up for the upcoming week and such, and a lot of things for the month of May. So hopefully we'll see how things are going. Is that right?
Yep. We've got a bunch of stuff going on. So,
all right. Well, let's get started then. We left off last week talking about One Piece chapters 1145 and 1146, and we want to cover 1147, but as the discussion got a little bit exciting because we went into a lot of details, Matthew. So we're going to start by covering 1147, that chapter today, and we're going to preview as Matthew openly declared to our fellow California wrestlers that the Sequoia Quintet will be competing at the US Sumo Open. So we will be previewing that because that will be this Saturday at Long Beach State at the Pyramid. And then also we want to talk about an upcoming movie, which we will get to when that time comes. And this is something that I think will be an interesting project that's being worked on by a lot of people that we know in the MMA community, wrestling community, and so forth. So Matthew, let's get right into One Piece 1147, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, this one's excited, and it's appropriate that it'd be a break so that we'd be able to catch up completely and talk about it in depth.
Right. So we're seeing that looks like obviously, from the first couple of pages, we've seen that I forget what his name is, but the one guy, he took out Saul, the shepherd,
Yep.
God Knight. He took out
Saint Shepherd.
Right, Saint Shepherd. He took out Saul, and Saul is telling Robin and Chopper not to reveal themselves because obviously they'd be taking on a God Knight, which would not be a great thing.
I don't know if and I still don't know if they meant to say that they were invincible or if they were immortal. I don't know if they were.
Well, the dialogue says they're immortal, but since I don't really have any access to the actual Japanese raw chapter, I wouldn't know for certain.
Right, because you'd be able to read the kanji and see if it says immortal or invincible, because they're very different.
Right. But probably I can imagine that the reason why Saul would be saying that is because he's probably never heard of, God Knights being defeated in the first place. And, he'd have that inside information being that he was a formal vice admiral in the Marines.
Yeah, he had that experience. He may not have worked with the God Knights, but it's one of those things where the God Knights are pretty open. They're not like CP9 or CP0, which are secret.
Mm-hmm.
Basically these special ops units. They're the God Knights is kind of a special ops unit, but it's like us and the Navy SEALs. We know they exist, but rarely do you see them in. The number of people who have probably actually seen the Navy SEALs in action is very rare. And I would imagine that the people that they've been on the other side against probably either aren't alive in the case of Osama bin Laden or, haven't been able to say much.
Right. So, yeah. Then we go into the fact that, and it was Summers. I had to look that up, but Summers was the one who's been taken out. But then we also see that it looks like Gunko
captured everyone, including Jinbe.
Yeah. Which is, I know a lot of people are probably like, well, how is it that Jinbei is getting captured and all this stuff, right?
Because like I was saying last week, isn't he a hockey user? Not maybe not Conquerors, because we haven't seen him use Conquerors, but doesn't he have some kind of hockey?
Yes, I know that for one, he does. He definitely has armored hockey. But I
Yeah,
also got to imagine he's probably got observer's hockey too. I mean, you would think at least.
Yeah, so you'd think that a hockey user would be able to defeat a devil fruit user like that. I mean, a devil fruit is not in any way, shape, or form immortal. I mean, and let's remember, Luffy always uses his devil fruit powers in conjunction with his hockey powers.
Right, because he's learned how to do that.
Right. That's how he defeated Kaido.
Right.
And Borsellino.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So obviously the other three are unhappy with Jinbei letting himself get captured. But I guess, it could always come down to the fact that, sometimes I think we've seen this in past One Piece chapters and episodes where, sometimes people can use trickery beyond when dealing with either devil fruit users or those with hockey. But it's
So
kind of a rare.
You think he's being weaker than
No, he probably got outsmarted or out manipulated by Gunko, is what I'm saying. But remember, she's got the ability to readdress the direction of things and where they go. And I'm kind of thinking that might run along the lines of like projectiles or something like that.
So you think it's well, yeah, because she was redirecting some of the attacks against other people. So you think it's possible that maybe Jinbei, for the sake of everyone else, didn't go all out, because he was like, I might legitimately hurt other people, some of my crewmates, if I go all out.
That could be something, because, well, right now he says in the one dialogue box that he's trying to come up with a plan. So he probably, that's a way you could go about it. But obviously it's powers that he had not encountered before.
Well, let's be honest. Everyone's smarter than Luffy. Luffy is I see, I fight. I see, I want, I fight. That's Luffy's philosophy. Whereas everyone else is more like, we need to strategize. They're directing him. They're like, okay. It's like, I know you want to see, I see, I want, I fight, but let's try to time this and let's direct that and let's use it at the right time. That's what basically everyone else, and their strategies range a little bit more. Some are smarter than the others, but basically, it's not like Dumb and Dumber. Everyone else, except for maybe Zoro. Well, but even Zoro has a little bit more. It has more. His problem is his direction.
Yeah.
Actually, we do get. I actually saw some fans who said that if he and Gunko faced off, Zoro's inability is the perfect counter to Gunko, because his inability to direct, to go in the right direction would counter Gunko's putting people in the wrong direction. So maybe that's something that'll happen. But but then there's also the fact that Brook is familiar with the God Knights, and Gunko likes Brook to the point
likes Brook's music. And she wants to enslave him and stuff. And obviously, again, this is where Oda gives Brook always has the coolest retorts to that, similar to when he faced off against Big Mom.
He did call her young lady.
And obviously Gunko is threatening Brook with death, and Brook's answer to that is, I would rather die than live without honor. So obviously, and that's kind of in reference to the fact that he's sworn his loyalty to Luffy as well. So again, Giga Chad Brook, making his entrance again.
Yeah, Brook is a Brook's basically Brook is a funny character. I was gonna call him a joke character, but that's not really accurate. Brook is a funny character, but he does have those moments where he's like, I'm not backing down, even if I might be outmatched.
Now we see here that now Summers is addressing the island of Elbaf, and he's saying what they've come to do to Elbaf, why they're kidnapping the children, why there's all these manifestations that are going on, obviously. The children have woken up. They're also seeing the manifestations. And also that when the giant warriors try to come to the rescue, and this is kind of a tale as old as time and stuff, but some of the manifestations somehow appear to be the moms and wives of the Elbaf children and of the giant pirates, So that becomes the part where the wives and the moms are scary, kind of the old wives' tale sort of thing, which kind of turns that into a joke portion of the chapter.
Yeah, it's there's that saying that but behind every strong man is a strong woman.
So. Yeah. So obviously, then so Summers is now saying that it's up to Jarl to make the decision about whether Elbaf is going to join the God Knights as their slaves in order to, in their world conquest, I guess. And obviously the kids are named. And we
one
see
of them is Jarl's granddaughter.
Right. Jarl's granddaughter, and then Colin. And with that being said, so now with Colin's name on the group because he tried to rescue them and such. Actually, no, he was captured when he was with Gunko. Right. He was captured by Gunko. So now that you've got Ripley and Surya, aka Scopper. Now that he knows. Then the other threat that Summers is making is that they have to burn down the library and the school, which means destruction of knowledge.
Yeah, because that's the library of Ohara there.
Mm-hmm.
The scholars of Ohara could have run, but they sacrificed themselves to make sure those books survived.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's kind of why Robin is going to make the move that she does at the end, because he's like, it's like there's two things that are the legacy of Ohara, me and those books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with that being said, that means that two people are now going to step up to the plate, as we see in the last panel, which is Scopper Gabon, because he's going to go rescue his son, and obviously Nico Robin, because of the threat against the library and the knowledge of the world. So now we'll have to see how the next chapter unfolds, which we presume is going to be next week.
Yeah.
But that means that we've got quite a bit coming, don't you think?
Yeah. I like how the fan base, and particularly Grand Line Review, because I have a tendency to watch his videos a lot, addressed it. Chopper and Robin are not weak, especially after as we saw what they did in more at what's it called, more at Wano than at Egghead, but they're clearly not weak. So the fact that they're hiding probably has more to do with seeing what all we can do, because what's his name? Because Saul's not dead. So it's more again like Jinbei trying to play the long game and figure out, come up with a plan, more than they're hiding because they're incapable. So
yep. So this will be interesting to see what is going to happen. And again, the chapter should be releasing next Sunday on the 11th.
Well, and it'll be interesting to see when the Monster Trio actually.
Yeah, we haven't seen them for a while.
Yeah, when they go onto the playing field, because they're obviously the game changer. From what I've seen, it's like the God Knights may be powerful, but Jinbei is holding back, and the Monster Trio. I have a feeling that the Monster Trio are going to end up matching up against those three.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see who matched up against who. Because wait, doesn't one of them have a sword?
I think out of the three, well, they've all got weapons. Let me see. Out of the three of them, so I'm almost certain that it wouldn't be. I'm almost certain that it wouldn't be that hard for Zoro to be matched up with one of them.
Yeah. Well, either way, we'll see what happens, because the reality is they're. Yeah. So I think they'll get. Well, and then there's also supposedly, there's the possibility that even though Shamrock's been recalled, he could be. He could redeploy.
Yes, that's very true.
Yeah, but Luffy's already said, this is a it basically is calling him Nisei Shanks, which is fake Shanks. So, and he's gonna know right off, because Shanks has the 3 scars. He's gonna know right off, this ain't Shanks. This is not how he would behave. I'm gonna fight him because he's mocking my mentor, essentially.
Yeah, probably what it would be. Yeah. Doesn't look like Gunko has an actual weapon. She's got her arrows. Shepard's got his Summers has his thorns, obviously. But it looks like he can make a kanabo. But yeah, I think Killingham he's got a trident. But I'd say that he's probably the only one.
It might either be, I don't know. We'll see what happens, because we'll just have to see what happens.
All right.
Because like I said, Shamrock might be redeployed.
Okay. Well, moving on to the US Sumo Open, Matthew. And so far, all of us, the 5 of us, the quintet of Sequoia Sumo, are confirmed to be competing at the US Sumo Open. And I think what it's going to be is you and Luis in the lightweight, right? And then myself and Tim. Tim's on weight, right? For the middleweight. Is that correct? And then our own walking with how does he? I don't know how he what series he's got going, but Matthew Westwood is going to be our heavyweight representing at the US Sumo Open.
I don't know if he set the record. I don't know if Emmanuel Yarborough ever, compete at the US Open, but yeah, our kind of our own Emmanuel Yarborough is gonna be competing at the US Open.
Yeah, and I've seen him put out some videos lately. How he's been trying to train and stuff like that, and doing Shiko and getting into his stances and all that stuff.
Yeah, he's genuinely working hard. He's taking the training of this seriously. So we'll see how he does, because it's like he did well at the SoCal Open, and the only person he really lost to was former light heavyweight champion
Avila.
Danny Avila, but he's going to be going against actual world level competition.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting how this goes. Because let me see here. So in the past, I've seen Andrew used to put, like featured competitors out for people to see. It doesn't look like he's done that this time, although based on the highlights that he's putting out there, obviously Ichinojo is going to be the guest.
The special guest referee.
Right, the special guest judge. The referee is the one on the dojo.
Right, the special guest judge.
Right. So, and then he's also saying that
yes,
looks like there's
the highest level former Nikishi's gotten. Ichinojo was a Sekiwake and a multiple time Emperor's Cup winner.
But he's listed the highlight of 5 world sumo champions to be at this event. So looks like Andrew's been hustling pretty hard to like get a lot of people here for that. And it looks like this is going to be a field of 60. So, I mean, if you think of the math about that, and again, I don't know, I'm hoping that, the women's field will be a lot more, there's going to be a lot of participants, because I think they only had like 5 or 6, and they kind of put them all into one weight class the last time.
Well, they were all heavyweights last time.
Yeah.
Okay. So I saw. So there isn't a list of the actual competitors, but there's a list of nations that will be represented. And I'm looking at this one press release. Mm-hmm. So Mongolia, Uzbekistan, Russia, Ukraine, Azerbaijan, Georgia, United Kingdom, Egypt, Venezuela, and Chile are the nations that'll be coming.
Well, I'm kind of surprised at the United Kingdom.
That is interesting, because I'd like to see if they were even coming before a certain
I'm sure they were
event that shut down the world.
Right. Obviously, from Egypt, that's no surprise at all. So hopefully we won't have any run-ins with them.
Yeah, hopefully they
treat.
I don't know why they always have it out for you.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like here, boom, boom.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
What in the world?
Well, of course, a lot of people are saying the last time that I shouldn't have tried to post when he threw me down, which I get, but first of all, I wasn't expecting that he was gonna shift me and throw me down like that.
Yeah. Well, he didn't need to. He had you right there. If anything else, he could have just plopped you on your feet outside.
Yeah.
That was completely unnecessary. It probably took more effort for him to slam you than to just plop you outside of the dojo.
Yeah.
It made no sense. It was unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't you say this was the same guy though that got disqualified for excessive celebrating?
Well, that's what I was told. That's what I was told. Yeah, this was the guy who did the backflip at the World Games.
Well, the Egyptians clearly don't have it out for me, but I still don't know why even though he was
second against like what, 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah, even though he was, I went against. They had one lightweight, but even though he was second in the pool, I still can't figure out why against the other 2 guys he was tentative, and then when he goes against me, he decides to turn on. I'm just like, where did this guy come from?
I don't know.
Well, I've been training for, you know, the techniques that he and who was the Azerbaijani guy I went against?
Oh yeah.
Seymour. I've been
Same.
training for, I've been training against, you know, for what when I could practice with Tim, because Tim's been a little busy. If you look at the social media, he hasn't been at the practices as much, but I've been training with him on, because he's got kind of more of a similar body. And
Well,
I had less problems against Maxime, I felt, than I had against those two guys.
yeah.
I was gonna try to. The problem was I got into Maxime, and my first thought was I'm gonna do something flashy, and but that cost me because he outside tripped me, and I ended up falling on my butt.
Yep.
But
So yeah, so it's going to be an interesting ride. How we're going to do, because
yeah, well,
you know,
yeah, it's yeah. One thing I'd like to see is how well, and then all of most of us are signed up for the open weight as well. I'm not sure if, well, because aside from Matt, it was just you and me doing the open weight.
yeah, at the
Because
SoCal Open.
yeah, because Luis and Tim weren't exactly confident yet, but I know Luis is signed up for the open weight. I don't know about Tim.
Well, you sign up when you tell Andrew, during the tournament. So we'll see.
Well, that's the thing, is that the SoCal Open weight was extra.
Yeah.
This tournament,
it's not.
You already got the option of competing or not. So
yeah.
I still think it's funny how last year when we did the open weight, because most of the Americans hadn't been there, they basically followed me and we kind of did a little mini dojo. I walked up in a circle and they kind of followed me. Okay.
All right. Well, so now we want to move on to what's probably going to be an interesting film project that is coming up. And it's one that is based on the life and career of one Mark Kerr, who was an MMA fighter back in the early days of the UFC. Also was around when Pride Fighting Championships was also around. And the interesting thing, because I did get to watch the trailer of it, and sometimes when you see this particular actor, he's kind of like Jason Statham, because they starred together a lot. They're kind of like playing the same characters over and over, big, tough, tough guys sort of thing. But just this thing about, and also, now that he's back in the WWE, doing his thing over there too, helping that brand build up and stuff. But Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is going to be starring as Mark Kerr. Obviously, this helps to kind of tie back to, his roots, being in professional wrestling. Not that, Mark Kerr was in that, but I think just this looks like, from what I also read, this was a passion project for The Rock. But just looking at how The Rock looks as Mark Kerr in the trailer, I was actually quite taken away by the fact that he looks nothing like, his normal self. Matthew, just expand on that for us, and how this looks and how it'll
be. Yeah. So the background, the name of the movie, The Smashing Machine, is exactly what there was a time when Showtime was doing, a lot of reality-based documentaries. One of them featured Mickey, what's his name? The guy who was in the boxer that Christian Bale portrayed. So they were doing a lot of reality-based documentaries at one point, and one of them that they did was the Smashing Machine, specifically focusing on Mark Kerr. And so basically, this is a biopic based off of that documentary. If you go, I'm not sure if it's available on YouTube, because copyright. But if you want to go and watch it, you can. It's like hour and a half, 2 hours or something like that. But it's basically focuses on Mark Kerr, going from the UFC to Pride and talking, the different, because back then, but we were there during Pride's heyday, and it was a big deal. I would argue it was a bigger deal than even. I'm still not sure if the UFC is at that level. I in terms of
there a lot of people would be watching that, and there were some legendary matches that we got to that took place during the Pride days.
Yeah. So yeah, and talking about how Mark Kerr kind of had to adjust because when he went to Pride, they had more rules because he first started Vale-Tudo, where it was like, we know how the early UFC was. There was very few rules. So Mark Kerr was going in there, doing working with Mark Coleman, and they were the Hammer House gym were these group of wrestlers who did the original ground and pound, where wrestlers would take guys down and just get on top of these guys and beat them out, or try to do like a wrestling style submission, like a head and arm. So Mark Kerr was very good at that, but he would also include like headbutts. But so that worked very well in the no rules Vale-Tudo and early UFC. But then he goes to Pride, where Pride never allowed elbows, and I don't think they ever allowed headbutts either. So he had to kind of adjust to this basically the rule. Basically, with the exception of the elbows, the rules was kind of what essentially what UFC is today, with the exception of maybe the scoring, because they judged it based off of the entirety of the fight. They had a 10-minute first round, and depending on the fight, they might do a second 5-minute round or 2 other 5-minute rounds. And so him having to adjust to that, but then also him dealing with, he was shooting up painkillers, and he was also shooting up his own, what's it called? He was also shooting up steroids. So they kind of covered that in the documentary. And then on top of that, Emily Blunt's portraying Dawn, who was Mark Kerr's. I think she's the only wife he had. But them kind of dating and then bouncing it out with Mark Coleman. And then I'm glad they included actual Bas Rutten, who was at one point Kerr's coach and trying to help him adjust a little bit more. But something else, the reason why this was kind of a passion project for Dwayne Johnson is because at one point he was actually training with these guys. He was training with Bas Rutten. He was so apparently he actually wrestled in high school, not pro wrestling, before he went to college and CFL and did football and stuff like that. So when he was Rocky Maivia, when he was getting booed and the era was slowly adjusting, he was getting paid like maybe $100,000 a year, which even nowadays is a lot, but and so back then it was a lot, but he was getting, he was performing like 200, maybe even 300 times a year or something like that. It's something ridiculous. And in Pride at the time, they were getting to my understanding, because this is based off of what Dwayne Johnson was saying on the Joe Rogan podcast when he appeared like a few years ago. He said that at the time they were getting paid $100,000 a fight in Pride, and they were
they were getting paid a lot of money.
They were getting paid 3 or 4 times a year, which is why I said I don't know if the UFC is even at that level yet, because the average fighter isn't getting paid that.
No, they're not.
I mean, I'd say the average fighter is getting paid like mid to high 5 digits a fight. I mean, it's gotten better than what it was, but it's still that's still pretty low. So he was considering jumping ship like Ken Shamrock did, and just going to just fight in Pride like what Ken Shamrock did. It was shortly before his contract expired that they said, let's turn your heel and make you the Rock character, which, as we know, the rest is history.
Yep.
But
with that being said, I think, yes, this is going to be interesting. We'll see how it's going to go. And maybe if we can, we might react to the trailer when it's getting ready to come out. So with that being said,
the trailer's already out.
Yes. No, I'm saying
you mean closer because it's in October. Yeah.
All right. So with that being said, Matt, that's going to be it for us today. As always, we want to thank our audience for being here with us and spending some time listening to what we have to say. And since obviously we're going to be coming back from the US Open and stuff like that, we may or may not be here for next week, but definitely here for the following week.
Definitely tune into the USA Sumo YouTube and watch us if you can't go there in Long Beach.
So with that being said, Matthew, as always, thank you. And for all our viewers, we will see you next time.